good evening to each one of you. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome you today for this very, very special conversation. My name is Bhavana Issar, and at a certain stage and age, I decided to found Caregiver Saathi. I have to say that in this story of founding Caregiver Saathi, one of the very special people, a mentor and a guide who has been instrumental in not just inspiration, but also in guidance, in encouragement, and in opening a variety of doors for me, has been Dr. Rajagopal, who has been generous with his words, with his time, and with his support. I don't think he needs much of an introduction, but I think it is really worth our while to go through his brief biodata or his resume for us to get a sense of who we are talking to. Dr. Rajagopal, or Dr. Raj, as he's fondly called by many of us, is the founder and chairman emeritus of Pallium, India, an adjunct professor of global oncology, Queen's University, Canada. His initiatives to remove regulatory barriers in availability of oral morphine for pain relief have contributed to the amendment of the NDPS Act of India in 2014, a government policy on palliative care in the state of Kerala in 2008, and Government of India's National Program for Palliative Care in 2012. The international organization Human Rights Watch honored him with the Alison Day Forges Award in Los Angeles in November 2014. In 2017, a documentary film titled Hippocratic 18 Experiments in Gently Shaking the World, based on Dr. Rajagopal's contributions to palliative care, was released by Moonshine Agency, Australia. Actually, in the screening of this film at TIS Mumbai is when I had the absolute pleasure of meeting with Dr. Raj and sharing with him my dream about Caregiver Saathi. My card was incomplete, and he was generous enough to send me a message saying, "I'm trying to write to you. I think your email ID is wrong." Who does that? So this will not feature in his resume, but I thought it just gives you a sense of what a person Dr. Raj is. He was named one of the 30 most influential leaders in hospice and palliative medicine by American Academy of Hospice and Palliative Medicine in 2017. 2018, Dr. Raj was honored with Padma Shri, the fourth highest civilian award given annually from the Republic of India. Well-deserved, of course. Dr. Raj published his memoirs called Walk with the Weary and in 22. And a new version of that, a new edition of that was also published with a foreword by Dr. Shashi Tharoor. I have the delight of owning a signed copy by Dr. Raj. And well, we will talk about all of this and more. Welcome. Welcome, Dr. Raj.
Thank you. Thank you, Bhavana. Very, very generous words. Thank you. And thank you for remembering old history.
Well, another fun fact or important thing for us to document in the history of Caregiver Saathi is that at the IAPCON, which is the Indian Association of Palliative Care Conference in Kochi in 2019, Dr. Raj called me and said, "You know what, we would like to begin the session with voices of caregivers. Will you make a presentation?" Thank you for that, Dr. Raj, because that really gave me the confidence and it really opened many, many doors for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Bhavana.
So we would like for you to let's first start with the idea of aging and, the theme of what we are calling aging gracefully. What does that mean for you?
Bhavana, and all colleagues, and everybody who is listening to this. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to you. A great privilege and a very important subject too. Often, aging gracefully brings a certain picture into your mind of a cheerful person, always smiling. Maybe a lot of wrinkles, that's okay. Maybe nice, graceful, gray, and being the life and soul of the party wherever he or she is. Maybe a bit of a romantic image. And I know a aging gracefully group in my own city. There are octogenarians here, there, many people, really elderly. The problem, Bhavana, is that those groups and your romantic image does not include the people who cannot be part of a group that physically meets up or cannot be part of the image that you have conjured up because they may be bedbound. Sorry to spoil the image, but it's a fact that only 10% of us, or at the most 15%, will be blessed with a sudden death. Everybody wants that. Oh, may God help me not to be bedbound. We pray. But God Almighty has written that only for that tiny minority of people. 85 to 90% of us will go through a prolonged illness before we leave. So when we say aging gracefully, essentially to me, it's about acceptance. That acceptance is not only important for old age, it's an acceptance that is necessary to be reasonably happy all through life. Okay. We live in a generation which saw nuclear families extended families, joint families transforming to nuclear families. We belong to an age when one expects the kids to be employed in the same town. And from there, we have the whole world before the youth. And has just opened up also in the space. And this is a reality that we find difficult to accept. So aging gracefully is about coming into acceptance. Acceptance about one's own realities. We help those children to fly away. We encourage them to fly away, and now we grumble. And that grumbling picture doesn't come into my picture of graceful aging. Accepting that does.
So well said. I think the very essence, it should be like what they call a tweetable quote. Aging is about acceptance. I think it's a little bit of very inspired by a spiritual journey as well. Um, given given your expertise and the body of work that you've done in the area of palliative care, I wonder what palliative care and aging have as areas of overlap or preparation that we could consider as we as while we are still able to.
So aging gracefully certainly includes the integration of principles of palliative care into all healthcare. Do you all know the theme of World Palliative Care Day this year, which falls on the second Saturday of next month, October? The theme this year is 10 years of the resolution. Where are we? The resolution refers to the World Health Assembly 67 resolution of 2014, 10 years now. The resolution essentially called for integrating principles of palliative care into all healthcare, which includes, of course, the elderly, but which includes children, which includes every aspect of healthcare, which includes the healthcare that your organization provides. Because it is not only about professionals. The bulk of healthcare in the elderly is provided by the family. If the family is around, if not, maybe paid caregivers, the staff in a nursing home, which will be there only for a tiny, tiny minority of people. So that means from that beautiful Aging Gracefully group, which meets every week or every fortnight or every month, suddenly you find 2 people dropping out in October. And then somebody shares, oh, he has had a fall, he has a fractured femur. And don't you know, she had a stroke. She is in a hospital now. That person now is no longer part of that Aging Gracefully. You are not accepting that this will happen. If the group takes it on as everybody's responsibility to take turns, visit the person, not once, not twice, but at a regular interval for the rest of the life, if that person willingly accepts it, that would be following the principle of that integration. That person needs to live as gracefully as possible. Can I translate it to that one word?
Yes, please.
Living with dignity. It's essentially about that.
Yes.
Living with as much dignity as possible to the last moment.
Yes.
That's what it's all about.
Yes.
So
I think it's really... I'm sorry.
No, I was saying that this integration of principles of palliative care would mean keeping the person physically comfortable, emotionally in acceptance and in as much comfort as possible, socially comfortable, meaning all the valuable relations may not be available. The child is in Canada or Dubai, visiting once in a week. But then you and I, so long as we are reasonably mobile, getting across there and being the person. And spiritually, maybe that has been a long speech. I would like to say about spiritual well-being or this graceful aging in the context of spirituality a bit later. But let us have the question or the comment that you were about to ask.
I was thinking it's important, although we have, and you particularly with yourself and the organization have, and your incredible team has invested so much in helping people understand what is palliative care. If we could, take a step back and say, okay, this is palliative care, and this is how it is misunderstood today. So let's just define that. And what would your ambition for palliative care in the aging population be? Then, we can get to the spiritual well-being as well.
Very happy to provide you with a short sentence to describe palliative care. The official definitions may be a mile long. It's about mitigation of serious health-related suffering
Right.
and improving quality of life.
Hmm.
Mitigation of serious health-related suffering and improving quality of life. Of course, wait a minute. A footnote is necessary. Another sentence. Health is not just absence of disease.
Yes.
Health is physical, social, and mental well-being.
Yes. Not the conventional understanding of what we think of health, which is just physical and sometimes just the absence of disease. It's really important to think about it like this. So, but there is a misconception around palliative care, not just in the layperson's mind, but also in the medical fraternity. And we have been working very hard to try and get everybody on the same plane to integrate palliative care. Palliative care is holistic care and not just end-of-life care. How would you integrate it with aging?
Palliative care, thank you, Bhavana. Palliative care is not just about cancer. It's not only about end of life. By definition or practice, palliative care is for all serious health-related suffering.
Yes.
Now, beyond the pain, beyond the breathlessness, also management of the depression, anxiety, all that will come into life, possibly about socially, particularly about mitigating that loneliness. Loneliness is a huge disease which is not part of our textbooks of medicine. And that's a growing epidemic.
Yes.
So that and rebuilding connections. The old connections may be broken. The extended family is broken. Human beings around get together to form that connection. And spiritual, I mean, not necessarily about faith or about chanting hymns. What I mean is generally about a meaning of life and a purpose in life. Meaning and purpose of life. And it's about all this, whatever be the illnesses, if the suffering is significant, that suffering has to be relieved. And if you address all these domains, physical, social, mental, and spiritual, then quality of life improves.
Since we are about educating and supporting family caregivers and your experience and expertise in palliative care, how would you advise the new generation? So obviously there is a changing ask of families and family caregivers over a period of time. It was certainly very different a couple of decades ago, and it is going to be very different as we move forward. What do you believe are some of the areas that family caregivers need to educate themselves in terms of care in general and palliative care in particular, as we speak about, let's say, the person who's aging and their need for purpose, need for connection?
The graceful aging and all our concepts of graceful aging may be challenged by several things, and not only by having a serious illness for oneself, but also being thrust into the role of a caregiver all of a sudden. And of course, it can be young people, but very often, very often, it's an elderly person too, because the
Hmm.
youngsters have to go to work.
Hmm.
Their world is different.
Hmm.
Children have to go to school.
Hmm.
And during weekends, they are still doing their homework and mugging up things to
Yes.
regurgitate at the exams.
Yes.
So, caregiving is something that is thrust upon people and more on the elderly. Even if
Hmm.
you are able to accept your own morality or morbidity, okay, that I accept. This business of all of a sudden thrust into that role can be very hard. Why am I saying this? Bhavana, thank you for caregiver Saathi, which keeps focusing attention on the caregivers who are very important. Their problems are seldom understood. The challenges in terms of the loss that you see in front of them, the partner is still there, but the partner is still there in body,
Hmm.
but she or he is not the partner that one used to have.
Yeah.
And then also the restitution issues. In addition to all the problems, you are forced to be in a situation of being two people. Maybe, for example, this morning, I'm in Bengaluru at the moment, and with a wonderful group, I went on a home visit. Uh, they look after any illness, including particularly they have expertise in HIV management, but whatever be the illness, they take care of the person. Uh, this lady was challenged because her laptop crashed.
Hmm.
Since the husband got dementia, with great difficulty in her 80s, she had learned to use her laptop
Hmm.
to make transactions, pay
Yeah.
cash payments,
Hmm.
bank work.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, she did not know what to do.
Right.
Okay, uh, her one child has come home for a week. He's trying to be available as much as he can, but he has to go back. That's the
Hmm.
world we are in.
Yeah.
So, coping with all this becomes hard. Now, why did she all of a sudden find herself in this position? Because all these years, they had not thought about the future.
Hmm.
All the family finances were handled by the man. She
Yeah.
never had to step into a bank. She never had to deal with these transactions. So, in addition to being forced into the position of a caregiver, she was also forced into the position of her husband, as he
Yes.
used to be. And this is unimaginably hard.
Yes.
So, if we are in acceptance, I would never be able to do as good a job in the kitchen as my wife. I must
Hmm.
confess, she's an amazing cook. But I will be able to survive. I know enough cooking just to look after myself.
Yes.
And the same, she knows the family finances. She, we have a joint account. We took care to prepare our will well in advance.
Hmm.
Aging gracefully. Aging gracefully is not only about managing, going for those meetings and being cheerful. It's
Yes.
also about making preparation,
Yes.
remembering that there will be a time when there will be one of us and not the two of us. That's a vital part, which I'm glad you are creating an opportunity to brought into focus.
Yes, and a large number of people think about, articulating one's will as in terms of our physical assets. I think articulating our will is just a whole emotional process. It is about our assets, but it is also about articulating our living will. So I would like for you to illustrate that as well.
I am sorry to bring bad news to people who are listening to this. You are not that you did not know this, but many of us deliberately avoid contemplating this. Are you able to think about your own death?
Mm.
Are you able
Are
to?
you able to?
Did somebody say something else?
No.
Okay. Okay. Are you able to contemplate your own death? Because I have this bad news that we will all die someday.
Mm.
And if we do not prepare for it, we are not only landing ourselves in thick soup, we are also drowning our partner and our children in that soup.
Yeah.
And this, as you very validly said, Bhavana, this is not only about assets,
Mm.
it's also about our own ending. So if I had not discussed this within the family,
Right.
and if I all of a sudden got a stroke
Mm.
and became paralyzed on one side,
Mm.
would my wife have an idea of what to do with this half a person? She would perhaps take the person to the most expensive hospital,
Right.
where the moment I am in, I would be in an intensive care unit,
Mm.
which is a fantastic place when you have a salvageable situation.
Right.
They would set your body right, if it can be set right, and
Mm.
send you back. Only the body.
Mm.
The mind doesn't get attention there.
Mm.
In fact, the relationships which are vitally important for each one of us are broken.
Mm.
The one thing that I wanted that time is to convey a final message to my wife. Okay, my right side is paralyzed. Somebody helps me to hold a pen. I may be able to write a message on a pad. How many intensive care units would provide that pad and pen? How many would bother to ask? So, and suppose it's advanced cancer. No,
Mm.
I don't want to talk about you. I have, like everybody else, have 10% chance of dying with cancer.
Mm.
I also have at least 7% chance of eventually dying with something worse, dementia.
Right. Yeah.
So when that happens in today's medical world in India,
Mm.
specifically India, this doesn't happen so much in Western countries. In India, I would be imprisoned in an intensive care unit
Right.
where everything that's important to me will be stolen from me. The relationships, the hand to hold, the pleasure of seeing my grandchild once more, they will all be mercilessly stolen from me. And a tube will go into every orifice. If somebody feels I am not having enough food, one goes in here. I hate that thing. I pull it out. What happens then? My hands and feet are tied and a tube is forced. As I said, intensive care unit is valuable when there is a salvageable situation because every organ function is measured from moment to moment. Minute to minute interventions can be made. And at a critical point, life can be brought back. But when one has a metastatic advanced cancer, when one has been living with dementia for the last so many years, doing this to the person is the ultimate cruelty for which there is absolutely no justification. This the medical world knows. It's not that they don't know. In National Cancer Grid, fabulous organization, a conglomerate of all major cancer hospitals in the country, about 350 of them. They have a guideline. Do not treat people with advanced metastatic cancer in the intensive care unit. Listen, why do I need that solitary confinement and rigorous imprisonment? I need to be with my family. So these things I can now express. This is what you called a living will. The 2023, the Supreme Court came out with a verdict validating advanced medical directives, the other name for living will,
Yeah.
advanced medical directives. So currently, as it stands at the moment, the advanced medical directive that I have signed is legally binding on the doctors.
Yes. Since I'd like, yeah.
Just one more thing. I will also say that legally binding valuable document will be totally valueless if my family doesn't agree.
Yes.
Because any sensible doctor will know that dead people do not go to court. Living families go to court. So whatever I have done, anybody with an ounce of brain follow what the family does. So the most important preparation of that, making that living will, is discussing it with the family, ensuring their compliance. Thank you.
So thank you for saying that. For example, now there were two parts that were evoked, as you were speaking. One, of course, I was reminded of the multiple conversations that my mother has had with me, especially in the recent past. Her writing her will was definitely an emotional process for her as well as for me because, she wanted to write it in a certain way. And she had certain desires for things to be carried out. And having that conversation with my brother and I was not easy on us. So to represent, then of course, also saying that, under these circumstances, I want to go to the hospital, no, don't take me to the hospital, etc., are not easy conversations to have because they generate a lot of emotion of fear, anxiety, the possibility of death. They are not nice thoughts. But because I also represent the voice of caregivers, I'm going to bring that in now. And I'm going to say that many times, and I'm sure you've encountered this, many times, let's say there is no exchange of living will, etc. A good son or daughter, the primary caregiver, will take their loved one to the ICU or the hospital because they want to do, quote unquote, what is the best and leave no stone unturned. Because otherwise, what would the world think of me? What kind of a son am I? What kind of a daughter am I if I, uh, that's definitely one consideration. And the second is, how do I bring up this conversation with my aging parents? It is so hard. They have lived a life in a certain way where, you just described it, right? The father has had a certain role to play, the mother has played a certain role. How do I understand that I have to do something about it, but I don't know how.
Thank you. The children wanting to do everything. natural. That's possibly mostly because of love.
Yes.
And also maybe a bit of guilt if you have not been there for him or her. I wish I was not in USA at that time, is what they will say, be thinking. And all this makes them want the doctors to do everything.
Mm.
Uh, and doctors also sometimes may ask this question, well, suppose something bad happens, do you want us to do everything?
Yeah.
Which loving child can say, no, no, don't do everything and do only 50%?
Yeah.
Not possible. So the thing is, for this discussion to happen, when you discuss what is really the best for whom, not for the extended family's happiness, not for what the society will think, but for if when my time comes, my family should be thinking, what is the best thing for me? And very often we have this conversation with children of patients whom we look after in palliative care. You will have this challenge.
Mm.
There are two kinds of love. One is a selfish kind of love, where one person, I can't let my mom go. I can't live without my dad. Wanting to hold him and her back. The other is the more selfless kind of love, which recognizes he must be suffering so much.
Mm.
If it is time for him, let him go. So this needs forethought. Unless you are thought it through, you will say,
Mm.
do everything, doctor, do everything. And
Mm.
that's a major issue. So, which is why this conversation is necessary. But you also have a problem for here that when you are having that happy dinner and looking forward to some after dinner conversation, you're not used to saying, hey, dad, mom, let us talk about death.
Yes.
What the hell? Think of auspicious things. Don't
Yes.
be so pessimistic, is what many people may say. Having said that, if you do a poll on every senior citizen listening to this, I think you would find that a large number of them, I would hazard a guess that it would be at least 50%,
Mm.
would be worried about this, having thought about this. They have seen a
Mm.
cousin go through hell in a hospital. They have seen an uncle going through that route. And they
Mm.
were all wondering inside without voicing it.
Yeah.
Because if that person talks about it to the wife, she will say, why are you saying all this?
Mm.
And if the wife says to the man, he would even get angry and say, don't be so pessimistic. And children would brush it aside.
Yes.
But uh, when this session is over, I'll send you, I hope you can share it with the group in your recording,
Yes.
an article written, I think in the Hindu,
Mm.
by one of my colleagues many years back. Her name
Mm.
is Gina Papadi,
Mm.
who looks after our website and everything. She says one day, triple pregnancy twins, a life or to fatal for in one
Sorry.
seconds. Uh,
Please go ahead.
was that any message to us to repeat
No, I
something?
think
No.
I think
Okay,
it was
excellent.
just
Okay.
once. Yes.
Uh, so Gina Papadi, my colleague, was reading about end of life, etc., and told her mom, when I die, I don't want this, and this. I want
Mm.
that, and that.
Mm.
And she said there was not a moment of hesitation. Her mom immediately said, of course, I also don't want all that. What rot?
Mm.
Then she walked across to her dad and said the same thing. And dad said the same thing.
An interesting
So
intervention.
a lot of people think about it, are worried about
Yeah.
it. They
Yeah.
are almost afraid to talk about it. So
Right.
many people would welcome the conversation, but many others will not. That also I agree.
Yes.
Uh, I have two children.
Okay.
I in two different countries. Of course, one is in India. I told him, look, this is what I have written down in
Mm.
advanced medical directive. This is what I want you to help me with. And he looked at it, read it through, and said, "Of course, Dad."
Mm.
That was it. 1 second. My
Mm.
other son said, "Why do you want to talk about this now?
Yes.
You are okay. You are healthy. You
Yeah.
have no lifestyle diseases.
Mm.
There's no need to talk about it now."
Yeah.
But that I couldn't leave it there. I
Mm.
persisted. I actually
Mm.
took him to listen to a lecture on end of life care by somebody else. And
Mm. That's another nice one. Yeah.
that was, I was requesting his service as a chauffeur. So as he was driving me back, he said, "Dad, I now understand what you are saying. It's
Mm.
okay." So this is one of the most important conversations in our life. You know why we don't have it?
Mm.
One, we may not know enough facts. We haven't thought
Yes.
about it. Two,
Yes.
we are scared.
Yes.
We are scared to face the issue. So much
Yes.
easier to pretend that the issue doesn't exist.
Yes. Um, Thank you. Thank you for giving us a couple of ideas, because I do think that as caregivers, we can have an imagination of what is expected from us, and we might not really be able to put a finger on, how emotions are driving some of our actions. But to know that, yes, this is an important conversation to have for ourselves first, and then maybe for our other loved ones, but also that there are many ways in which this can be approached. Maybe enlisting the support of someone else. So even if you can't go to a lecture or a session, enlisting the support of someone else who is an expert or somebody who is in that area could also be an interesting way to introduce the conversation in the family. But I think having that conversation in the family is so important, um, because we don't want the family to be, I mean, it's for our love for our loved ones, that we don't want them to be in dilemma when we are not able to take decisions for ourselves. Um,
True.
you know, with you, I can spend so much time and keep having many conversations. I've made a long list of questions that I want to ask you, but I do think that I would like to ask you a couple more questions and then open it for our audience as well. Um, I do. I would like to ask you about, how have you experienced, or could you give us some insight into your journey of acceptance over, over the last few decades? How has that been?
Uh, okay, talk about acceptance, but it's not easy. And because as we age, it's a series of losses, one
Hmm.
after the other.
Yeah.
And if you are not prepared, if you haven't thought about it, you would say, okay, I don't want to live with one limb, nothing doing, no amputation for me. Uh, and the person who has thought about it may be able to take a more intelligent decision. So for me, I have learned so much from the people I have cared for. I have had a, a farmer, very
Hmm.
little education. He was only somewhere around 55. I had to tell him the story that he had cancer
Hmm.
and it was incurable.
Hmm.
So we have a way of communicating that which you would know, but many people may not know. Like we don't suddenly break the news to him. We don't avoid talking about it either. We start gently trying to find out what the person knows, how much he knows, what he thinks about what he knows, and then communicate the news, not like a bombshell, but one a little bit at a time. So I had to convey to him that the results have come, and as it happens, it's not a curable disease, but you always add the positive point. But it's something that we can help you to live with as well as possible. I see you have this problem and this and this. We'll try to relieve that as much as possible so that you may be still able to go to work for as long as possible. So whatever is the most positive point, I was trying to break it so gently and all that, and the man intervened and said, "Doctor, tell me, what is it?" I said, "As it happens, it is a cancer." And was going on to add a bit more, and he then said, "It's okay, doctor. Don't worry too much. After all, I am 55. Everybody has to die of something someday. Tell me, is there some treatment to be done? Don't worry if there is no treatment. That's also okay." I mean, there are people like that, rare human beings who are in ultimate acceptance. And I can assure you that has nothing to do with literacy or education.
Right.
It's very often the educated, civilized, sophisticated people who are finding it harder. The average man in the village who has lived the whole life, facing many elements of suffering, is the one who is usually able to accept much better. So, with our education and way of living, the sophisticated carry a baggage with us. So, it is not easy, but unless the truth be told, that concept of living with dignity or aging gracefully is important. There are some people who deny in their minds, "No, I think these doctors are trying to steal my money. Ha, cancer. I have had the same kind of pain 7 times." And they go on living. They generally cope better till the last moment when they are no longer able to deny it. Then they are devastated. Whereas a person who is in acceptance may be able to live much better. Have I answered your question, or Bhavana, is there an element of it that I still need to address?
Yes, thank you for asking that. I would be very keen to understand how can you think of the most difficult thing that you've had to accept for yourself in your journey?
Uh, you put a difficult one for me. It's about, for me, it's about accepting the suffering of people whom I love. That was the most toughest. And especially when they were not in acceptance themselves, it was sheer agony. That was the most difficult thing.
Yes. The reason I asked you this question was that, like there would have been something that may have been told to you that, you're this age, so you shouldn't do this, or you shouldn't be here. And that could have been very, very annoying, very difficult, and perhaps difficult to accept, I would reckon.
Very difficult. Thankfully, for me, that has not happened much, at least. But what happens is out of love most of the time. I mean, don't go for that walk. Why do you want to go and have that walk on the sidewalk? We never know. You have to cross the road. Just avoid that. That kind of thing comes out of love. They are
Yeah.
concerned for my safety. But they forget that I am more than a body.
Mm.
That is maybe that also brings in the spiritual element that I wanted to talk about.
Mm.
I want to be a person, not
Mm.
just a body, safe body. And the person that I want to be needs to have some satisfaction in the way I live. Which may include still working as long as I can. It may involve enjoying what I can.
Mm.
Uh, that is essential for spiritual well-being, to be able to enjoy life, which means, okay, not what happened to me, but a diabetic person one day says, where there are laddus going around, family is celebrating something, he suddenly asks his son, give me a piece. In his mind, he was thinking, this could well be the last laddu of my life.
Yeah.
The son was concerned more about the blood sugar and what is
Yes.
content. Ha ha ha, no, and took the laddu away. Now, that kind of protective attitude is understandable, but
Mm.
very difficult for the person to bear.
Yeah.
So, in addition to that sense of enjoyment of life, it's also necessary to be able to contribute something. I mean, if the person is being creative and would like to draw, would like to write, we should encourage that rather than saying, hey, you shouldn't be sitting for so long. You
Mm.
should lie down and take rest. And
Yeah.
so it's about fulfillment. And that
Yeah.
fulfillment should be permitted as much as possible. But if it cannot be fulfilled, if what I want to do is something beyond what I can
Mm.
realistically do, then that person needs to sit with me and hold my hand while I am trying to come to terms with that. I know that always every wish cannot be satisfied.
I hear you. I think what you're, if I were to paraphrase what you said, I think what you're saying is that acceptance is critical. Acceptance is not easy. And as we navigate our way to acceptance, there can be an experience of loss because, you know, what you wanted is different from what you have to accept. So there can be some kind of navigating through loss, or there needs to be some renegotiating. So there needs to be, you know what, I would like to enjoy that laddu, or I would like to enjoy that walk, but the family caregiver thinking that, you know, that's difficult. And because that is difficult, you know, where is the common ground? Can we arrive at something that will work for both of us? That's how I hear what you just said.
Mm. So, recognizing that the person is more than a body and the
Yes,
person's needs are important and they
yes,
are to be satisfied whenever they are possible. And
yes,
sometimes there may be a question, a challenge, a balance
yes,
to be achieved. Like
yes.
the person has secondaries in cancer, secondaries in the spine. If they are bearing weight, there may be a fracture and he may get paralysis.
Mm,
Okay, so what should be done? Maybe
mm,
there is this radiation to be done so that that bone gets stronger, and
yeah,
thereafter some risk may be accepted in
yeah,
getting the person to walk again. Because
yeah,
just because it may break, my God, the person
yeah,
being confined into a bed for the
yes.
rest of his or her life is a cruelty. So yes, that balance is important.
Well, thank you for that. I'm going to request Renu, who has posted a question over here, to probably see if she wants to turn on her video or at least unmute and ask this question. Renu, we did speak about family members in general, talking about living will, but I notice your question has a nuance about being a daughter. So would you like to highlight what the challenge is?
Yeah. So my question is, when supposing your parents haven't really thought about it and they have never broached this topic with you, but given that, say, I am now aware that this is something important that actually should be discussed at that point and with them, just so that we are all on the same page, what would be the best way to broach this topic with them without actually upsetting them as well? Because I do not know at this point of time how willing are they to even discuss on this topic, or because they may not have ever thought about this topic, because they haven't really had this kind of exposure that possibly I have now, being part of and being associated with Caregiver Saathi, and knowing, that these are important things for us to really discuss and talk about.
Renuji, there must be someone in your extended family who went through a serious illness. There has to
Mhm.
be somebody who died in the last 20 years. And
Mhm.
if, because you are not among the poor people in the community, uh, an intensive care unit death would have been inevitable in the family. That
Right,
could be
right.
the matter to be discussed. Maybe, Renuji, you will bring up with your parents, like I attended this session today, and then I thought of my uncle. See,
Mm,
what happened to my uncle was cruelty. Now I understand. And I don't want that to happen to me. Therefore, I
mhm.
am going to write an advanced medical directive.
Okay.
Renuji, it's not about only about your parents. It's also
Mm.
about us. We
Yeah, yeah,
all
sure,
need to have that
absolutely.
document. So maybe that's one way of broaching the subject.
Okay, okay. Got that. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Rajagopal.
Thank you, Renu. Really appreciate your asking. Dr. Raj, Renu is a really special person. She's cared for more than 42 years for a son with very challenging needs. And she has, she's really special. And thank you, Renu. She's now caring for her dad. And it's such an inspiring thing that she's always open to learning, always open to saying how can things be done differently. I would like for anyone else who may have questions to raise your hand or to turn on your video and please ask your questions. Just giving a little space for that. Anyone? Okay, I'm going to give you the time to write your questions. And while you do that, I have, so I mentioned the book that Dr. Raj wrote, Walking with the Weary, and it's a really special book. Dr. Raj, we spoke about your book long ago, and uh, there was so much to learn and so much to be inspired from in that. Most of our audience today seems to be individuals from the medical fraternity, and most likely your fans, and they're all here. I do think that the healthcare workers, doctors, mental health professionals, social workers, all of us have an extra demand on our emotional well-being and compassion fatigue. I would like for you to help us understand how we can keep up the energy and the conviction for this work as we work with some of very, very difficult cases, as we walk with the weary.
So my respect to each one of you for walking in that difficult road. Bhavana, the question specifically is, how do we help people who run this journey, who walk on this path? And my immediate statement is, you all must be doing this because you have compassion in you, right? Bhavana, why did you have to do this? You could have made more money at the same time with your business. You have compassion in you, and you chose not to suppress it. You also chose to find fulfillment in doing something that your heart desires. I'm making an assumption, those two assumptions. Now, I'll have another question to everyone. Okay, so you are a compassionate person. Are you compassionate to yourself?
Mm.
If you have compassion in you, please remember that each one of us deserves to have our own compassion. I cannot be like that candle, just burning myself to nothing, just giving light. Because then at some point, the candle hits the bottom and extinguishes, and there'll be no one to care adequately for the person. And if you think, no, I am reasonably healthy, I'll be okay, but maybe it is not only a matter of the body. Compassion fatigue, if we don't like to think about it, or burnout, as it's often called, it's very real. The devout daughter who keeps on caring for the elderly mom for 3 years, at some point of time, just somewhere gives up inside in the soul, but doesn't allow the body to react and keeps on trying, and then shouts at the mom at a point of frustration. Now, being compassionate to oneself certainly involves recognizing that no human is a machine. And at some point, even machines break down anyway. At some point, we'll break down. And being compassionate means ensuring those me times, having some time to yourself, doing things that you always wanted to do, and somehow finding somebody. There is a challenge. If a lot of us elders don't like home nurses, paid caregivers, to us, to some of us, it means that you are giving up on me. You don't want to do it anymore. Sometimes you will have to be patient and educate me, and somehow make me accept that that person coming in for a few hours to care for me. It need not be a sudden transition. If we are thinking about it, we can happen. That I know I would like nothing better than caring for you all by myself. But I can realize myself breaking down. I will be here, but I also want to bring a help. So the other person may not be happy about it, but this compromise is inevitable. If I am lying in that bed and you are my daughter, you will be trying to please me. But at some point, you will have to be firm and say, if you are not kind to yourself, you are being cruel to me tomorrow.
Right. There's a reason tough love is also a thing. And sometimes we have to, be that person. I think, thank you very much for highlighting that if we have to continue with our purpose and with what we are passionate for in the long run, then being kind to ourselves over a period of time, being compassionate to ourselves as much is really critical. We find that many family caregivers are not well versed with access to pain medication, and you have done some groundbreaking work in that area. Usually, caregivers will not access information unless you are in that situation. And sometimes when you're in that situation, there's just, too much of an emotional ask. What would you advise for people in general to know about palliative care, pain medication, and how to spread more awareness around it?
Uh, uh, Thank you, Bhavana. You have already recommended my book. It is not written, it's not a textbook for healthcare professionals. But if anybody wants to have a 2 or 3 pager, our website has, in the resources page in our website, there are some frequently asked questions.
Right.
Some basic information is available there.
Yes.
And we also have a telehealth program
Right.
where that's mostly patients or families asking questions about management. The second largest group is doctors asking doubts about management of patients, but any question can be asked. Bhavana and Donna, I have shared the email ID and the number with you. So when you
Yes.
share the recording, if you give that,
Yes.
it's a
Yes.
free service,
Yes.
and your questions can be answered.
Yes, we will be sharing the link to Pallium India's website and the link to the helpline that exists so that you can access it. Not just with all the participants here. I cannot make out who's using OnePlus, but whoever that is, and also for people who will be accessing this recording over YouTube, we will help you. I think knowing something about pain management and recognizing that accessing medication is okay. Sometimes it's valuable. Sometimes it must be done because it's a part of what Dr. Raj mentioned, which is living with mitigating pain and living with dignity. So there is one other question I would like to bring Dr. Chitra. Dr. Chitra, would you like to ask your question directly? Because maybe you may want to add nuances.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I joined the meeting a bit late. It was nice to see Dr. Raj. I did a 1-month internship there in Pallium, India while I was doing my post-graduation at
Hello,
Trivandrum.
Yitra.
Yeah, hi. So my question was basically around if one of the parents, in my case, if my mom is physically unwell and if she's not able to do her daily things as she used to, and more than tackling her, what I find difficult is tackling my dad, because he's not getting an insight into the difficulty his wife is going through. And he is often, what I felt as a psychiatrist is he's lacking that compassion or maybe empathy, and that, okay, she's not 20 or 30 anymore. She has aged and he cannot carry on with his demands. And what happens is if we give more care to our mother, he becomes more difficult to manage. So it's basically managing him more difficult than managing someone who is physically unwell. And how do we tackle these kind of I don't know what to say about it, but maybe these two different sort of things within the parents when both of them are getting old. What I feel guilty about having to uh, feel that why is he thinking like this, why is he not compassionate to my mother. I feel guilty about it, and I feel that I'm being more hard to him or more harsh to him. At the same time, I don't know how to deal with him. So just know your insights into that.
Chitra, sorry, my heart goes out to you. Very, very difficult situation when you have to face your mother's illness. And then if there's a physical suffering, that's very obvious to us. And we find it easier to be compassionate to someone with a physical ailment. Whereas if somebody has a emotional issue or a behavioral disorder, then we find it harder. So,
Yeah.
and I hope before answering your question, I hope I'll remind you to be compassionate to yourself and to remember that you will never be able to solve all problems. But at some point of time, it may be important to bring in help. It is likely that your conversation with your dad are mostly about your efforts to convince him about how ill your mom is, what exactly is happening to her, and that is likely to be a conversation. But at this point of time, it may be very hard. If you need, you will have to bring in somebody to help you, but somebody will have to listen to him. I see a person who is suffering enormously. It's unfair that he is demanding all this, but he has an emotional distress which has not been brought out yet. Maybe after you have had a good night's sleep, when you are feeling as well as possible, maybe it would be important to sit down with him and not lecture him, but to ask him, Dad, with mom being ill, you must be finding it emotionally so very hard to cope. Tell me how you feel. Don't be afraid to reach out a hand and steel yourself. He may be angry because he may be angry with himself. He may be angry with fate. He may be angry with God. And God and fate are not present before him to get angry with. But Chitra is available. The anger may happen against you, and you will have to remind yourself not to get angry yourself. But most of the time, if you are able to get him to talk, it will end in tears. It will end in his concerns. Like, if she is not also there, who is going to? I am helpless. I need her. I can't live without her. These may be the issues. I think your dad needs help, and somebody needs to sit down and listen to him. And at some point of time, just listening to him may not be enough. It may become necessary very clearly to draw some lines that I'll be here for you within these limitations. She cannot manage without help. I will have to give that primary consideration. And within my limitations, I am going to do everything for you because, Dad, you are dear to me. I love you. The few words spoken today may be in anger. I think we need to bring in more words of love. Not easy.
My problem is I sometimes feel, okay, why is he becoming so selfish that I feel so sorry and guilty that why am I thinking about this or like this about my dad? He was there throughout his life, and why am I getting angry at him? So yeah, that makes me more guilty or more angry at myself. Yeah.
Sidra, I hope you have my number. If not, I'm sure Bhavana or Donna can give you. Maybe we can have a conversation. We can find the time for a 15 minutes conversation or something like that. I think we need to go deeper into it. I have just tried to emphasize the general principle of listening to the person first. And very, very, very difficult trying to be non-judgmental.
Yeah, I can
Thank you
see
for
that because
highlighting
with
that.
patients, I'm training to be non-judgmental, but I can't do that in my own family. So I find it a bit difficult.
Yeah, difficult because we are only human beings. Chitra, you are also unfortunately is only a human being. You are not an angel without any limitations to fly.
Okay, thank you, doctor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for bringing that out. And what I heard was, I think, a fundamental principle. Dr. Raj, thank you for demonstrating that for us, which is, I think, the first thing is to listen in. It is hard. We get all kinds of training. But what I learned from this interaction was that I might have all the training in the world, and I might have all the best intention in the world as well. But sometimes when I'm in the thick of the situation, it may be worth my while to take the courage and articulate my challenge with someone else and get a point of view. So thank you, Chitra. That was very valuable for all of us. Is there anyone else who would like to ask a question? I did see some people had unmuted themselves. Here's an opportunity. This is, after all, an Ask Me Anything session. Dr. Raj is really generous. He is happy to share his number, but this is a good opportunity for everybody to learn. Hi, Donna.
Hi, hi, Dr. Raj. Very nice session, I would like to say. My question is like, even with Chitra's question, right? You told that it is important for us to be compassionate to ourselves first. But, how do we do that? Like when I'm seeing my father is in a condition where he's at pain or, he needs attention and I am like stressed and I know I cannot, like I'm going overboard or, I am too tired to do it anymore. That at that particular time, how do I choose between, if I should choose myself and be compassionate to myself, or I should just go over the bound and take care of him? How do I decide that? So how do I be compassionate to myself?
If you go over the bound and continue to help him, you may not be able to help him day after tomorrow. Your mind, you also, though you are so used to working in this field, would have limitations. At some point of time, your body gives up. You have a flare-up of your old allergic tendency. You get a low back strain and get bedridden. Then you will not be there for him if you don't look after yourself. But the person in the bed may not understand that easily. And that's a difficult conversation that will have to be brought up. Maybe like this organization, somebody else can do that trick. Like ensuring at least so many hours of sleep, making some kind of arrangement for the person to be looked after during those hours. Unfortunately, doctors and nurses also will make unrealistic demands at you, and at some point, it will have to be claiming that time for yourself. I'm not saying that every week you will ask for going to a movie, but if at one point of time you just want to get away from there and go and sit at a movie, maybe you should do that. And I hope you are also able to. You are not one of those people who are very afraid to ask for help. Maybe that's a best friend. Maybe there are a few people. It's not a weakness. It's a great strength to be able to ask for help. And everybody may not oblige. You ask three people, only one may oblige up to a point. That's okay. I mean, if you are in an acceptance that every best friend is not really the best friend when the need arises, then you will be okay. But I know it's very difficult. But at some point of time, that conversation, looking for alternatives, there are always alternatives. And anyway, you are not there for 24 hours every day for the person anyway. You also are a human being and sleep a little bit and then wake up feeling guilty. I think for his sake or her sake, you will have to claim that time for yourself to have enough rest. And if necessary, do what you enjoy best.
Thank you. Dr. Raj, you'd mentioned that this year's theme is 10 years since the resolution. How are we doing? Given, you've done the kind of work that you've done in the space, if you were to take a pause and say, what is your vision for palliative care in India, or how do you see it evolving in the coming years? That's number one. How do you see it evolving? What's your vision for it? And number two, very important for us would be, what is the role of family caregivers as this vision emerges?
The first, if I just say what I see for tomorrow, you may even think I'm much too optimistic. So let me put 2 or 3 facts in front of you. India's national healthcare policy of 2017 includes palliative care at the primary level.
Yes.
India has a national program for palliative care, which needs a lot of work, not very effective now, but it is there.
Yes.
From 2019, palliative care is part of MBBS curriculum.
Yes.
From 2021, it's part of nursing curriculum also.
Yes.
There will be an implementation gap. That's something that we are trying to address, spreading education. So when and the law governing opioids like morphine has been changed in 2014.
Correct.
So all these favorable points are there, and particularly with that education. I can see this happening, that in a few years, a critical mass, okay, the management people like you will call it the percolation threshold or whatever, the tipping point, that critical mass of healthcare professionals would be trained in the basics of palliative care, and that by itself will be a dramatic change. It's doable. It's happening. It may not be very visible at the moment because that critical mass has not nowhere near reached. But with that curriculum change, it will happen. It may not be the thing of beauty that willing non-government organizations do, but there is certainly going to be a difference. So tomorrow, when I have intractable sneezing and go to any doctor, he may just not unthinkingly write a prescription. He or she may be able to ask, you seem to be very anxious. This appears to be just a common cold. When that person says that, he has started giving me palliative care along with this treatment. And if I say, but doctor, I have a critical interview to appear today. And then if he changes that prescription to a non-sedating antihistaminic, principle of palliative care has been included. But
That's
for
right.
that sensitivity and that much a communication skill to be able to see what the face says, what the body says, will have to be there. And that's what is happening.
And how do you see the role of the family caregivers evolving given, demographic shift, demands on women, everything?
Sorry, I failed to answer that part of the question. When you deal with elders, give us information in small chunks one at a time, because our aged brains cannot handle too many things. Sorry.
No, that's okay. But point
The
noted.
caregiver. No, some things are going to worsen. We talk about home nurses.
Yes.
They are the backbone of the care system
Yes.
for the upper class and middle class.
Yes.
What do you think is happening in the family at that home nurse when there are elders? What kind of lives they do they live? So there is going to be a major problem in the sense that that group of paid caregivers will, as the financial situation in the country with the reduction in poverty is happening to be going to be like any Western country. So caregivers are going to find it harder. And unless the medical system evolves, this is going to be even harder. I mean, inevitably, there will have to be nursing homes with decently paid caregivers to care for people, not the poorly paid home nurses of today.
Yeah.
So that shift will have to happen. And I think things unfortunately change very slowly in our country. Only when the problem is there strangulating everybody, then we change. But maybe caregiver Saathi and Pallium India and every non-government organization needs to pursue that. But for the time being, the kind of courses that they have started already, we do it virtually. See, nobody wants to attend a course for caregivers. Or I won't say nobody. Very few would want to do it till they face a problem. But when they see a problem in an uncle's house, they may want to do it. So empowering caregivers with more knowledge and expertise is a vital part. And thankfully, there are a growing number of organizations like Caregiver Saathi working towards that. That's an absolute need.
Yes, I think you highlight a very important thing, that as the things shift, the responsibility and the onus will be greater on families. At least we will feel it, given our love for our loved ones. So because we will feel it differently, it could mean different things. And we do need to be innovative in terms of how we are going to address this rising concern. Dr. Raj, we are at the top of the hour, and it has been such a masterclass, I have to say. There is one last minute question. Payal, you want to speak up yourself? Why don't you? Or let me know and I could articulate for you as well.
Hello, sir. Thank you so much. It was wonderful listening to you, especially the things that you said, that if you're not kind to yourself today, there's a high chance that you'll be, cruel to somebody tomorrow. So my question is, should it be like a mandatory thing for elderly people in the family to get counseling, or you wait for the problems to start? So because there's a chance that beyond a certain age they are going to behave in a certain way. So if you're prepared for it, it's easy to handle even for the caregivers. So what do you think about that, sir?
So Payal, why only for the elderly?
No, for the caregiver as well.
Yeah, caregivers
As a
also.
family, counseling as a family.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, unfortunately, adequate, skilled counseling is not by and large available in our country. You may have some cities where some amount of counseling is available, but if you consider the whole country, it's abysmal. Secondly, counselors trained in caring for elders, understanding these problems, understanding a bit of palliative care, are not also all that many. So which is why I pray that caregiver Saathi, may your tribe increase. You need to be cloned and replicated all over the country in every place. But Payal, I think short of that professional counseling, the next best thing is to have these training programs available for everybody. It has to be low cost or free, where whenever somebody is thrust into the role of a caregiver, they can undergo this. It will be harder for the elder to accept it, because we at people of my age very often have our own fixed ideas. Why? Because you don't want to do your job. You want me to have counseling? That may be the reaction. You may not always find success, especially because the word counseling, unfortunately, in our country carries a stigma. So maybe clothed as education programs, widely available, things appear in newspapers, that may be an answer. But Payal, you have asked a question for which I certainly do not have a good answer. So maybe if anybody else, you want to offer something?
That's a great idea. Well, there's a lot of wisdom in this room. So would anybody else like to add? Though, of course, I do think that Dr. Raj gave a very good point, response, given that there is a certain stigma associated with counseling. This morning I was talking to someone, and I get a lot of requests. Can you get so-and-so counseled? My mother, my father, so-and-so needs counseling. So I have to often turn around and say, let me know if you need it. Don't suggest it for someone else. That's the only piece that I'd like to add. I think we can work with ourselves. Sorry, Payal.
A talk like this helps so much. So when I heard this word called compassion fatigue, that itself made me realize that, oh, there, what I'm going through, somebody knows, that can be acknowledged and solved. And, it's not just in my head that I'm tired of taking care of my mother-in-law and my mother at the same time. It's and my work and the family and everything. There are too much on the plate. And compassion fatigue is something that is real. It was not just in my head, it's real. So talks like this do help. So thank you so much, doctor, and thank you, Bhavana.
Thank you, Payal. Yes, Sandhya.
Yeah, Dr. Rajagopal and ma'am, Bhavana ma'am, as you are talking about, I joined lately, as you are talking about the caregiving for the palliative caregiving for the elderly, I'm a mother of a special child. I mean, he's now 34 years old, and we people are also, parents are also getting older, and in our groups of Humsafar all over India and in Bangalore and all, senior parents, we are talking about the similar situation when we may need the caregiving for ourselves as well as for our children. I mean, the child at home, the adult child at home, because the demands may be varying as they age and as we age. So something, if you can think of, I was also going through the websites mentioned, especially for the special elder adults, kids.
Again, I don't have an easy solution for this, Sandhya ji, but we are not regularly seeing that family. But somebody asked for a counselor. He was a big person in a major technical national institution. He's in his 70s. His wife is also in his 70s. And they are looking after their son with special needs, who is around 50. And their concern, like yours, is that what happens when one of us becomes ill? One of us alone is not able to handle the son. And the solution lay in finding a place. Look, we will explore 1, 2, 3. You will explore 1, 2, 3, these homes for people with special needs. And there we will provide them palliative care service also, because we don't have a home where these people can be taken care of. So till your question is addressed, Sandhya, who will take care of it? And unless we make realistic plans, that place may not be able to give the same care with the same love that you are able to. That's something that we come to accept it. Maybe a home where, who knows? I mean, most people will say, Sandhya ji, you are healthy, you are fit, you are okay. But I'll accept that that's also a possibility. In which case, we will have to find a place where both of you can be cared for. Or if you are unable to care for the person physically any longer, find a place where that kind of help is available. I wish our country had more of places with institutions of that kind. At least they are there in metropolitan cities. You go out of them, they may be very, very inadequate, and those are things still to be addressed. But it's easier to postpone things, thinking about it. We will need to confront that possibility and think of alternatives.
What senior parents we are thinking is how we get the caregivers at home for our elderly. So will it be possible to, train in a way to be just empathic and give love and affection to our children and stay at home with our children, maybe on shift wise, such of those trainings may be required. That's what is our thought for the future.
Bhavana,
Absolutely. I think yes, sorry, Dr. Raj.
please complete your sentence.
Yeah, I was just saying that, thank you for bringing this up, Sandhya ji. And I think having specially trained staff can definitely be valuable. I also think that collectives, I'm sure you're in touch with other parents who have similar needs, and collectives coming together to be able to put together either a facility so that it's not just in home, in the home, in our home, there can be social isolation. So maybe having a few people together, like a community, like a collective, can be valuable. Dr. Raj?
Bhavana, maybe being in Mumbai and having a strong organization, you may be able to swing something that we in our Trivandrum has not been able to, though we tried. Can we persuade one home nursing agency? There are so many of them. One of them to offer a training program for their home nurses in the basics of palliative care.
Right.
And that means thereafter they will get better pay.
Yes.
So maybe they can screen the candidates. And I think if one home nursing agency does it successfully, it will catch on.
Yes.
And
We are trying to do that because all these people from the rural areas who come as caregivers to the, elderly. I have a caregiver for my mother in my brother's house. They are, simple living, and even our children want just the simple living, simple love and affection, empathy. That's more than enough. And being in metropolitan, and as Dr. Rajagopal said, all these facilities could be afforded by middle and upper middle class people. So why can't we, that's what, approaching an agency would be a better, attempt.
Why we failed is because most the agencies that we have in our city, at least 5 or 6 of them, big ones, they are all overburdened with work, and they don't have the vision or initiative to give attention to this. They are pure business houses. So we have not been able to interest anybody to have this initiative, but that will be very valuable if it can be done.
Yes.
Thank you for giving, supportive suggestions on the same lines what we are thinking. Thank you, sir, and thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Sandhya ji, I'll encourage you, in case you need some specialized attendant, you could look at the Caregiver Saathi website and request. Yeah. We are working with a couple of agencies in Mumbai and in Delhi to see if the staff can be trained, like Dr. Raj suggested. But it's just...
Email
Yes,
ID or the customer care from the website will help me.
Yes, absolutely. We will also mail it to you after the session. It's just that the cycle is a little longer, and it's not so easy to find a person who's been, adequately screened and trained and placed. So
Yeah.
we are doing our best to build this capacity.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Dr. Raj, and thank you everyone who has made the effort to be here today. Some of you have asked questions, and some of you have perhaps been in the background, probably, I'm sure, learned a lot. Is there anyone else going, gone? We can certainly have much time with Dr. Raj, but I'd like to acknowledge and thank you for all your support, your kind words for Caregiver Saathi, and for teaching us some new skills as well today, Dr. Raj. Thank you.
Bhavana, it was a privilege to talk to this group and talk to you. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Raj. Have a very good evening, everyone. Thank you. And I hope that you have a restful weekend. And should you have further questions, then please visit the Pallium India website or the Caregiver Saathi website, and do let us know what questions you may have. We will certainly follow this up with to make sure that your questions are addressed.